Gosh, aren't debates fun? But do they do anything? Like, do debates actually change people's minds? Do they impact elections or, for that matter, policy making? Well, fortunately, we have people who study this kind of thing, and evidently no, no, not even a little bit. Debates do not change people's minds, whether that debate is being had over Thanksgiving dinner or between two presidential candidates. You're not going to change the minds of the people sitting next to you, and you're not going to change the minds of voters in any substantial way. Even protests have been shown to have vanishingly little impact on policy making, and you can read more about this in the book Don't Talk About Politics by scholar Sarah Beth Lebrano. And don't worry, it's not as nihilistic and depressing as it might sound, okay? But the question is why, right? Like, why is it that we love these debates so much and they do so little to actually change anything? Well, Lebrano writes, when your beliefs are entwined with your identity, changing your mind means changing your identity. That's a really hard sell. So I think this might be worth keeping in mind before we dive into this video of Tim Pool storming out of a Jubilee debate. But first, we should probably talk about why it is that our politics become so entwined with our sense of identity. Now, I am a scholar of depth psychology, and depth psychology began in the early 20th century with folks like Sigmund Freud and C.G. Jung, and they developed their earliest theories by working with patients who you could describe as like extreme cases. For example, C.G. Jung worked at the Bergolzi Clinic where he did his word association experiments, specifically with patients who were suffering from dementia precox, which later became known as schizophrenia. Now, that approach of looking at the most extreme cases is very different than a lot of the research that was done throughout later 20th century psychology, where they would look to things like statistical averages or normality, whatever that is, basically the middle of the bell curve rather than the extremities. And I think both of these approaches are valuable and both have limitations and both can give you different kinds of insights. But I thought, in keeping with depth psychology, let's imagine when it comes to political beliefs becoming entwined with one's identity, just some like extreme cases. So imagine in one case you have this sort of diehard MAGA Trump supporter, right? And they love Trump, and he can do no wrong. And if you say otherwise, you're going to get yelled at, and they're going to say you have Trump derangement syndrome, and you're going to walk away potentially going, you know, it's almost like they thought I was criticizing them rather than Donald Trump, who maybe they've never even actually met. Or imagine the sort of caricature of the screaming and emotional social justice warrior that was so popular back in the day, the blue-haired college student who's freaking out and has a sort of beautiful soul, and everyone around them is evil and only they know what's actually going on. So different political beliefs, but same psychological thing going on in both cases. Now let's imagine a third example, again the same kind of thing, and that is from the comic Peanuts, specifically Linus and his blanket, right? So Linus and his blanket, they're inseparable. You never see one without the other. It's as if they are one, and it turns out that's exactly the case, at least according to 20th century psychoanalyst Heinz Kohut, who developed this idea of the self-object, right? And so Linus, his blanket, is a transitional object, but it's also functioning as a self-object. It's giving him a sense of comfort that allows him to better orient himself in the world. It's also important to remember that we all have self-objects, and how do they develop? Well, when you're an infant, you don't really know where you end and the world begins, right? The baby doesn't understand that they're not all at one. Everything is just sort of sensory overload. But throughout their development, they start doing things like mirroring, right? They start smiling when their mom smiles. And that's the beginning, according to Kohut, of the formation of a sense of self. But if an infant goes through either acute or perpetual or prolonged forms of trauma, they will not be able to develop that sense of self. And they might have really, really strong self-object attachments later in life. And a self-object doesn't need to be an object. It can be an object, or it can be like a blanket, or it can be a political ideology, or it can be a politician. It can be any number of things, but it allows the person to essentially outsource part of their own ego that they did not get a chance to fully incorporate into themselves. All right, now enter Jubilee, right? So that is first and foremost entertainment. We know that because we know debates don't actually do anything. But why is it so entertaining? It's entertaining because some part of us is in some minuscule way identifying, right, with either Tim Pool and his political ideologies or the people debating him, okay? And so let's dive into this, and then maybe we'll do a little commentary on what happens when your self-image suddenly gets juxtaposed with maybe beliefs that run counter to how you imagine yourself. But let's see this, because I want to see the drama, and that's really what I'm here for.
Debater, please head to the chair in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back.
Sam,
Good to see you again.
great to see you again.
Yeah.
First time we talked about this was in 2019, so it's been quite a while.
I think it was
since
before
you were
that,
calling
actually.
for civil war,
I've never called for civil war.
or not calling for. I'm sorry. Said that we're on
Important
the brink
distinction.
of civil war.
And what was the citation I had for when I said that?
I would love you.
It was the Atlantic.
Okay.
And it was a journalist who interviewed several national security experts who said that there is a range of opinions in the national security space that the U.S. is trending towards a civil war. Notably, that when you cite people like Stephen Marsh, journalist, as well as Barbara F. Walter, former CIA, the U.S. academics describe the period that we're in as civil strife, meaning there's a criteria of death that has occurred for political reasons over the past year or years, for which the next phase would be civil war. However, we'll make my point, tracking towards it, I've not said that it will happen, although there have been many people who have said that we are in a cold civil war or some kind of cultural civil war. I always caveat, because I don't actually have a strong prediction.
First of all, you do have a strong prediction if you've been saying this since 2019. There's
Well,
42.
reading articles about
People
it,
can
sure.
look this up. There's 42 of your titles that have the word civil war in it.
Correct.
With big fonts on the front.
They sure do.
So why is that? It's sensationalist. It's easy to get clicks on that. There's a reason why you say it, because it's very profitable for your business.
Not necessarily.
But
we have
there comes a point-
1,600 episodes of just IRL.
There comes a point where people stop taking your prediction seriously.
Are you going to make an
Like you
argument,
said-
or are you mad at me?
I'm not.
And there it is. Are you going to make an argument, or are you mad at me? You ever talk to someone and it's as if all of a sudden they're acting like you're mad at them because you were just talking about politics, but maybe there's some kind of contradiction going on that Tim doesn't necessarily want to acknowledge. Who knows? And we all have these. No judgment.
Okay, then let's make an argument about whether or not we are tracking. No.
And the kid behind him doing the crybaby face. And that's he's getting roasted.
If you're making an argument, you don't like my thumbnails, or you say my name over and over again.
I'm saying that you say bullshit in order to get money. But what I really think is
let me ask you a
the
question.
predictions.
Let me ask you a question you can't
I will
answer.
agree with you that there's increased polarization. I would attribute a lot of that to people being specifically online.
Let me ask.
There's a lot less interaction with people that are in different camps.
Let me ask you a question.
But you're going to sit here and tell me that we're way more polarized than Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, who like shot each other with their disagreements. You're going to tell me that Andrew Jackson, who's the sitting president,
do you want to have a conversation, or are you just going to be angry? Why was Aaron Danielson shot in the chest twice?
Sorry?
Why was Aaron Danielson shot in the chest
I'm
twice?
not disagreeing that political violence is taking place in question.
You say Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, but then when I ask you a question about an assassination, you defer.
Come on, man. I'm trying to talk about an assassination. Well, I want to talk about the assassination.
Where you can say that
Let me
there's
ask you a
civil
question.
war every fucking year and it doesn't happen. And
I
you're gonna
never
say,
said
it just
there
hasn't
was.
happened yet.
Let me ask you a
Or
question.
if it does happen, you say, see, I've had it all
Let me
along.
ask you a
You are
question.
the same thing as like the
Let me
Christian rapture
ask you
people
a
who say
question.
that the rapture's coming every fucking year.
Are
and
you,
when it doesn't happen, it's
do you want a
like, oh, it's not
soapbox?
happening.
Do you want me to get you a
I'm just saying,
soapbox?
it's really
I can leave.
easy.
You want me to
It's
go?
really easy to like do what you do. It's really easy to do what you do. Like you literally just say, Civil War is happening next year. Civil War is happening next year. It's coming. Make sure you subscribe to TimCast. Continue to watch my videos, please. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. It's easy to do what you do, bro. GG. Thank you for returning.
No one has actually had a debate yet. Are we going to actually talk about whether it will or will not happen? I mean, sounds like it's gonna.
All right. I mean, I was kind of secretly hoping he was just gonna exit and then not come back. I'm a little disappointed, Tim. It's like commit, you know? If you're gonna run out. Like, make that the end of the video. You don't gotta go back and sit down. Anyway, It seems to me that like when your self-image, the way you imagine yourself in the world, suddenly has to be confronted with actions that are contradictory to that image you have of yourself, then yeah, you're going to be a little defensive. You're going to get even maybe a little angry. You might even run away. This reminds me of the movie Backrooms, where the protagonist is going to therapy because he knows his life is basically in shambles, but he refuses to take any kind of responsibility for his own internal contradictions. He can't accept the fact. It's too painful for him to accept the fact that maybe he might not be the perfect person in this particular scenario. And so the protagonist then goes and ensconces himself in his own world where he never has to change, and he eventually ends up destroying himself in an effort to basically protect himself. Also, that said, I don't think it's bad to get emotional during a debate or to storm out on its face. I think what's important is remembering whether or not you're doing it because you feel a sense of passion about a particular idea, or you feel that you are personally being offended in something, and that is a different thing, and that's maybe another clue that there's some kind of self-object going on. Now, when it comes to Jubilee more broadly, these debates are predicated on the idea of like a free marketplace of ideas, right? Like if we all just get together and we hash out these different stances, then the best idea will win. Now, we know rationally that that's not always the case. And it follows the same logic of capitalism, right? Where if you have all of these different products being made, the best one will be selected for by the invisible and quasi-mystical hand of the free market. But we also know that that's not the case. And so we know it's not the case with products, and yet we continue to act like with ideas that's going to be different somehow. But some ideas are horrible, and they absolutely went out throughout history, and some ideas are great, and they're absolutely never enacted, and they are made into being basically pariahs. Now, I don't think this is all necessarily bad news. The point here is I think that these videos at their best should motivate us to actually stop acting as if our ideas are our egos or our political stances are intrinsically tied to our soul. We should take these ideas and still take them into the marketplace, but not in an effort to sell them, in an effort to enact them or actualize them, because that is where both real psychological and political change can happen. Now, I know for me, I've spent many times going, well, I need to understand everything about this particular political issue. I need to know all the factoids. I need to be able to rattle off all these statistics so that I can change people's minds. But we're not going to change people's minds. And it turns out that the more you do that, the more you ruminate constantly on always wanting to have everything perfect so that you can explain yourself, you end up never actually engaging in any real work or causing any real change. Whereas if you just go out into the community and you just get involved in local politics, the psychological development happens after that. Then you start getting connected with your environment. You might even be able to develop healthier self-objects than the ideas themselves, because what you will get out of actually enacting these things and getting involved will replace it. And that is far healthier than protecting our ideas as much as possible and making sure that our image as, say, a moderate remains intact, even though it doesn't align with our actual views. That's the danger when you prioritize having these ideas as separate from yourself, when you could just go, hey, actually, yeah, you're right. I maybe am not a moderate so much. But I don't think that's necessarily entirely what's going on here either, because when it comes to the idea of a civil war from Tim Pool, I don't entirely disagree, except so on maybe a literal level. But metaphorically, we all have kind of wars going on and competing ideas in our own psyches, and these often manifest in ways that we're not even aware of. And you're never going to be able to be a completely whole, perfect person. We're always, like Tim Dillon, going to have contradictions that we feel really uncomfortable about. Now, you can accept that, and you can go into your community and you can start making changes, which will help you psychologically, it will help your community politically, and it will be far more productive than sort of watching these vicarious shouting matches where we identify with one party or the other. So that's my kind of hot take here. At the same time, it's Tim Pool, and I mean, look, is there a temptation to maybe make a little bit more fun of him? Yeah, but I'm not going to do that because this is a serious video about psychology, all right? And I'm a serious person, just like all of those journalists that Tim Pool loves, like, what's his name? Gish Gallop over at Gish Gallop magazine. That's it. Sorry, that's a stupid one. Anyway, I'm Dr. Elliott Morgan. I almost got through this without messing up. Please feel free to like and subscribe here at the Spin Room, where we talk about all sorts of fun things, and we try to twist it around and make it really, really fun. So, incredible outro. I know. I'll see you next time.